The government has made an important decision about East West Rail and the route that it will take from Bedford to Cambridge. This decision has significant implications for local residents, particularly those directly affected, but ultimately for us all. But I have to say that I do not support this extension to the railway. I do not support the government's decision. And I want to explain to you really what's been announced today, and then how my initial enthusiasm has changed over the intervening years to skepticism and now to opposition. So let's have a look first at the announcement of the route decision. As residents will know, there were 5 route decisions for consideration, 2 of which route alignments 8 and 9 went south, and 3 that went more northerly through Bedfordshire, 1, 2 and 6, and that's the set that East West Rail has decided upon. So coming out of Bedford and turning north between Clapham and Brickhill, and then going to the north of Ravensden, just to the north of Wilden, before travelling east. But then East West Rail's decision is not what they put in the consultation. They've now decided that that route will cut perhaps south of the Black Cat roundabout to create a new station at Thamesford, before the route then circles north again towards Camborne in Cambridgeshire. And that railway station in Thamesford is marked as an East-West Rail station, not an interchange station on the information that I have right now. And that's the point I want to follow up with East-West Rail. The Sandy station is not at all threatened by this. But I know that that decision, that route decision, going through some of the most beautiful parts of rural North Bedfordshire, will come to will be a great disappointment to many of the residents, particularly those in Ravensden and Wilden. And let me make another point. East West Rail was supposed to present at least an outline business case today alongside the Chancellor's announcement. But we don't have one. We have a set of bland generalities about how East West Rail will unlock growth. This is not the way to make decisions, substantial decisions, about the use of taxpayers' money. I'm extremely disappointed, and I will be writing to the Chief Executive of East West Rail, asking to meet with her so that she can present to me her business case. Now, it might surprise you that initially I supported East West Rail, but that support has eroded as I've sought answers to some key questions. First of all, I wanted to know what was the original justification for East West Rail, because nothing comes without strings attached when it comes to government spending. Secondly, why was this particular route chosen? It surprised many people. Thirdly, as I've talked to local residents, they've told me that they've been kept in the dark at key stages, and I wanted to understand why. I wanted to understand why the proposed railway pays so little regard to our environment. And finally, and most importantly, the business case. Does it mean that it is good value for taxpayers? Now, the original justification, to find that, you've got to go back to 2017 and a report that was put together by a group called the National Infrastructure Commission. They created a report called Partnering for Prosperity, and that report purported to say that it was about economic growth. But in reality, if you read through the document, what that is it is a plan for housing in the so-called Ox-Cam arc, the area for Oxford to Cambridge, which undoubtedly has a tremendous potential for growth. But what the Infrastructure Commission was trying to do was find a rationale for 1 million additional homes to be built in the 4 counties between now and 2050. Not 1 million homes for local residents only, but for local residents, for all the growth that might be achieved, but also 300,000 homes for London overspill. And you know what? I thought that I was cautious. I didn't feel that that represented a good plan for our area. Not when you consider the pressure we're already under in terms of access to school places, getting an appointment with a GP, getting access to an NHS dentist. And the numbers speak for themselves. If you look at the numbers from the census in 2011 to the census in 2021, for the number of households, across the UK as a whole, the number of households has gone up 6%. But in our area, my constituency, that number is 21%, 3.5 times as fast as the national average already in terms of housing growth. And I did not feel that it was right for East West Rail to go ahead if that meant there was going to be even more pressure on those local services because of undue housing growth. And then I came to the route decision. Well, in 2020, this was the biggest surprise to me. Why had East West Rail chosen a longer, hillier route? And why was Bedford the one town centre where the railway was diverted to go in and through? So I went back to the 2019 submission put in by the previous mayor to the National Infrastructure Commission and East West Rail in their consultation. And I looked to see what the economic benefits would be for what was the town that I was born in, one I care passionately about, one I want to see grow well, and the borough as a whole. And the answer was that the benefits were marginal at best, even as in the submission from the council. And when that route was compared to other routes, those benefits became vanishingly small indeed. Now, there was an argument that it would attract government funding, national government funding, but there are plenty of other ways for councils to attract funding from governments. It doesn't require a railway with all of the strings attached in terms of additional housing for councils and towns to get that funding. So I've been concerned that the business case as put forward by the previous mayor, the previous council, doesn't stack up for local residents in terms of the growth that it is expected or anticipated to generate. Now, when I spoke to councillors, your borough council, they said that the council back in 2019 didn't even tell them about the submission they were putting in. When I spoke to parish councils all across the affected area, they said that they had not been fully involved in the consultation by East West Rail. They've been kept in the dark. Councillors, parish councils kept in the dark. But you were kept in the dark too. East West Rail put that consultation out in 2019, but halfway through, they decided to spin all the numbers around in terms of the costs and the benefits. And so if you looked at the consultation documents, you would have anticipated a very different route choice from the one that East West Rail then decided to move forward with. And I believe it's that lack of transparency that has severely eroded support from residents in affected areas. And that has significant political and community consequences. And then the environmental damage. You know, this railway, this proposed route will go through some of the most rural parts of Bedfordshire. As I said, it's a hillier, longer route. So I asked the chief executive of East West Rail to come and see the route implications. You know, there was even a section at one time where the railway would go for 2,000 meters, but it would only touch the actual ground for 200 of those 2,000 meters. Loads of viaducts, loads of embankments, loads of disruption in our communities whilst that railway is built. And as we all know, this vision that's supposed to be galvanizing 21st century economy will be based on diesel and not on electric. A 19th century railway trying to solve a 21st century problem. Now, with all of this, ultimately, my role, one of the most important roles I have on your behalf, is to act as a defender of your interest as taxpayers, to make sure that your tax money is put to good use, that it will actually achieve the objectives and that projects come in on time and on budget. I have to say, when I went through the business case, the original business case of East West Rail, I couldn't see how it would add up. Travel patterns subsequently have changed, particularly after COVID. Who is going to use this railway? There was a big question about whether the real justification was for freight rather than for passenger traffic. Now, my view is that there is a better, greener alternative to East-West Rail. And let me outline to you some of those principles. First of all, unlike East-West Rail, the real solution to unlock growth in this area is a transportation system that is centered on our net zero goals and is focused on sustainable growth. That means a transport system that is based on electric vehicles, that gives a lot more scope to the role for buses and for active travel. The second principle is, unlike East-West Rail, the alternative must meet the needs of the modern workforce, and particularly the workforces that tend to get attracted to science parks and universities. These are areas where knowledge capital, rather than financial capital, is so important. And my judgment says that the best way to unlock that talent, to unleash that capital, is to focus on clusters of communities around the academic institutions so that people working for Company A and Company B can meet easily, regularly, and come up with new ideas and potentially start new businesses. Networking is key to unlocking growth in the modern economy. Third principle, and this is where the East-West Rail proposals and the whole Oxcam ARC initiative falls down. If you want to do something significant to unlock growth, it always pays to look at other parts of the world to see what have they done, so that you can learn from the best in international examples and also avoid their mistakes. And one of the tragedies about the Oxcam ARC proposals is that they have a go-it-alone strategy, a ribbon across 4 counties based on a 19th century railway as a way to compete for the global tech centers in Silicon Valley, in Guangzhou, in Japan, Australia, and others. And I don't believe that is best practice, and frankly, I don't think it's going to work. And fourthly, the alternative must galvanize and not run roughshod over local decision makers. One of the things I've learned in politics is that when bureaucracies try and do things to communities, they get pushback. But when ideas bubble up from communities, from your local representatives, you're much more likely to get a solution that can be grounded, can work, and can make progress. And the solution must fix the pressures on our public services before we add additional pressure as a result of anything that comes along with the strings attached to this railway. And of course, it's got to make sense for taxpayers. Now, this announcement does not end the discussion on a greener, better alternative, but it does make it more important. In my view, support for East-West Rail, this poorly implemented project, is still in question. There are better answers for the government, better answers for our environment, better answers for sustainable growth, and better answers for my residents. And as your Member of Parliament, I'm going to be working with all local authorities that are interested in a greener, better alternative. Thank you.